All right, so here I am with Jake and Paula, and we're talking about how to crack the code in terms of commercial leasing. And I won't go through all the stuff I just went through with them, but what I will do is I will show you what we're doing. Can you see my screen okay, Jake?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll just...
Well, it's just you.
Yeah, so you should be able to see it. So I'll just show everybody for the recording. We're going to talk about the China Gate building in Belleville. This is a picture of what it used to look like in the 1970s. Oops.
This is your screen's not sharing, sorry.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen? Oh, sorry
Right.
about that, guys. All right, let me try again. Thank you for telling me that. All right, we'll try share screen again. All right, so I'm going to... Can you see it now?
Yeah, there you go.
We can.
Oh yeah, all right. So this is the, I apologize to everybody. This is the China Gate building, circa the 1970s. You could tell by the cars. This is what the building looked like when we bought it. We didn't buy it for very much because it was in really poor condition. It's on the main street, which is called Front Street in Belleville, Ontario. This is, you know, some pictures I took on the inside, which I shared with Paula and Jake before we started recording. This is kind of what it looks like today as we go through demolition and renovation. It's a wonderful 150-year-old building that probably in the early spring will be completed. All right, so enough of that. I'm going to stop sharing that screen, and I'm going to go back and share a screen so you can see how to build a pro forma. Jake and Paula asked me, how do you build a pro forma for a you know, different types of projects? They have lots of different projects on the go. And so I worked for a couple of hours before we started on this particular pro forma. So Jake and Paula, you can imagine I've had any number of versions of this for this particular project. We've been working on it since October of 2020. It is now December of 2021. We'll finish probably in March or April of 2022. So it's quite a long project. And just getting a building permit for a building that was built in the 1880s, you know, and bringing it up to, you know, 21st century building code standards, that is a heck of a process that we went through. But we have our building permit and we're plowing ahead. So I've had many, many different versions of this. And as I said, I'm trying to crack the code on how to do proper commercial leasing. We don't want to have mixed use buildings. The apartments are all full and the commercial space is empty. And it can take a long time sometimes to lease. So I'll go through the numbers, okay? And Jake, you stop me, or Paula, you stop me if you don't understand something. So we bought it for really basically nothing. We bought a 12,000 square foot building for $280,500. We had to pay some land transfer tax. There's some legal fees, including title insurance, some financing fees, miscellaneous costs. So we were in for about $294,000 on the purchase of this building, the acquisition of it. And as I said, it's about 12,000 square feet. That works out to just under $25 a square foot. You can't build a doghouse for $25 a square foot. Now, the renovation budget, I have to tell you, was not 2.2 million when we started. It was 1.6 million. So that tells you in the last 14 months or so, how much the cost of materials and cost of labor has gone up. It's incredible. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys you're in the business that lumber prices and prices for everything have just gone up tremendously. So the renovation budget is currently at 2.2 million. We have significant professional fees, engineering fees, architecture fees, etc. And those fees are quite substantial. Again, mainly because we have to take a building that was built in the 19th century and bring it up to 21st century standards. So that was a very, very tricky thing. There's significant financing costs involved. And here at this stage, I have a contingency budget of 105,000. But I have to tell you, when I started the project, that contingency was closer to 600,000 bucks because there were so many unknowns. So the budget process has been a process of winnowing it down, and it's not an exact science. So it looks like our total costs are going to come in at about $3 million for this building instead of around 2.2 or 2.3. So it's up very significantly. However, the good news is when I went through the highest and best use, HABU stands for highest and best use. I was able to identify some additional revenues. And nobody wants their costs to increase, but if you can increase your revenues even faster than your costs are going up, your value will increase even faster. And that's kind of the direction I went in. There's nothing I can do about the cost. I mean, really, maybe Jake, you and Paula would have been able to bring it in at a lower number, but maybe not. So on the third floor, there are going to be 6 apartments. 4 of them are basically micro suites and 2 are studio apartments. Micro suites are just studio apartments that are really small. Studio apartments are have a little bit more room to breathe, but they're all small apartments on the third floor. The second, I should say before I go to the rest of this spreadsheet, all of those units on the third floor, most of them will be in LTR, which stands for long-term rent. Okay, now it is possible, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, that some of them might be paired with Artisan spaces. And the reason that is important, and I'll bold that, is, as I mentioned to Jake and Paula before we started recording, is that we have some Artisan spaces in this building. And if we rent those to people who are running a nail bar, registered massage therapist, a physiotherapist, somebody who's a coach like me or a realtor like me, anybody who needs commercial space, but they're really more gigpreneurs or artisans as opposed to, another hardware store. We're going to rent those together with what's called accessory residential space. Accessory residential means it's like caretaker or superintendent space, not covered by the Residential Tenancy Act. And as you know, Jake now and Paula, that is a huge profit driver if you're not limited by the Residential Tenancy Act of Ontario, or for that matter, rent control anyway. So anyway, so the third floor will have 6 apartments, 4 micro suites and 2 studio apartments. The second floor will have 4 apartments. They're bigger. One is a 2-bedroom apartment, one is a 1-bedroom apartment, and there are 2 studio apartments on the second floor. And those 2 studio apartments will be on Airbnb. Airbnb, again, is not subject, Airbnb units are not subject to the Residential Tenancy Act or rent control. It's covered in Ontario by the Innkeepers Act, so you can raise the prices there or lower them if you want to, as you will. The ground floor will have a cafe, and the cafe is accessible from the outside, but also accessible from the inside, and I think that's really important for everything, for usefulness, if you will. We also have leased part of the ground floor space to Loyalist College. It's a local college in the area, and they're going to run an accelerator, incubator, or co-working space in the building. But the ground floor, this is kind of interesting, will have 3 artisan spaces or maker spaces. We wanted to get away from traditional commercial, right? Where you might have a clothing store, ladies dress shop, shoe store. Those kinds of uses are probably difficult to attract, and probably they are going to fail within a year or 2. You can't compete against Amazon. You can't compete against Zappos. You can't compete against Home Depot or Lowe's. And so we're looking for uses that meet 3 tests. They're internet resistant, they are pandemic resistant, and they're big box store resistant. So we don't want, if somebody comes along and they're going to compete with Amazon, they're not going to be able to lease in this building because they won't last. I won't be doing them a favor by leasing to them. And if you think about a cafe with good food and good coffee and a patio out front, that's internet resistant. People like to go to cafes and have a cup of coffee and a nice, sandwich, right? If you think about somebody who's maybe running or leasing one of those artisan spaces, and she or he is a physiotherapist, until the internet can do physiotherapy, again, they're internet, big box store, and pandemic resistant. People need physiotherapy, they'll go and get physiotherapy. So those are the kind of uses that we're looking for. But what's interesting is we're going to pair all of those, gigpreneurs, artpreneurs, artisans with apartments. So we're going to have 3 Airbnb apartments and 3 apartments that are accessory residential. So out of our 12 apartments, 6 of them will not be covered by the Residential Tenancy Act. That is a huge profit driver, as I mentioned earlier. The ground floor will have 2 one-bedroom apartments, and we had to go to the Committee of Adjustment in Belleville to get permission to do that, because ground floor apartments back in the 1880s, in fact, right through the early part of the 20th century, were very common. But today, not so much. And I think that's a mistake. People want to live and work, in the same space if they can. All right. So now this is the key thing here. And by the way, after this is over, I'm going to send you this spreadsheet. Okay, Jake?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. So you can, this is how I analyze properties. Okay. And it really doesn't matter whether it's all multi-res or it's all commercial or it's industrial or it's a bit of both. I go through the same process. There are lots of systems out there which you can plug information into, and you don't have to build your own spreadsheet, but I find them much too rigid. And if you don't build your own spreadsheet, you'll make mistakes. I mean, it's possible to make mistakes if you're building your own spreadsheet, but at least here, you know where all the bodies are buried. All right.
For sure.
So it's very, very important, I think, to start from scratch and really understand what you're doing. All right. So look at the total income, net operating income that this building will generate. When I first looked at it back in October 2020, I estimated that the total net operating income for the building would top out at $196,000 a year, which was very good. But by really studying the market and understanding the implications of the pandemic and a huge change in the economy in the United States and in Canada, in fact, around the world, I think we're going to end up at over $300,000. That is a big change. And I'll show you how I got to that in a minute. But if the net operating income, NOI, for the building is $313,000, and the total cost is $3,051,000. The cap rate this building will produce is about 10.3%.
Yep.
Right. And one of the things I've suggested to you, Jake and Paula, is that you should not buy any property or invest in any property that performs below 6%. I don't care whether you're in LA, you're in Toronto, you're in San Francisco, you're in Portland, or you're in Ottawa, or you're in Belleville. I don't care where it is. 6% is the minimum. And a lot of people say that's impossible, but I don't agree with that. I think even in some of the bigger centers, if you know what you're doing, you can start to generate returns of 6%, 7%, 8%, 10%, 11%, or 12% is very, very good. And not all of them will be at that level. I own a number of properties. Most of them are in the 6 to 8 or 9% range. This one will probably be double digits. So CBRE suggested that the cap rate for a mixed-use building like this in a secondary market like Belleville is 5.5%. If this building were in Toronto, the cap rate would probably be 3.5%. So watch what happens when I change, magically I move the building to Toronto, okay? So I'm going to change this 5.5 to 3.5, and you watch what happens to this next number, the fair market value after completion. And one of the things I do, Jake and Paula, is I connect every single cell. So if I make any changes whatsoever, right, it will automatically update. All right, so I'm going to change this to 3.5. So I put in 3.5. When I hit the enter key, which I'm going to do now, you can see what it does to the value of the building. Yeah. Right. So if I could magically move this to Toronto, it would be worth $9 million. Unfortunately, I can't do this, so I'll go back to my 5.5. But the good news is, because I was able to drive up the revenues, the building will be worth about 5.6 or 5.7. Total cost would be about $3 million. So originally, with the lower cost estimate that I had, but also the lower revenues, I thought my wife and I and our family were going to make about $1 to $1.5 million on the building, which is a good result for somebody my age. By the way, I'm going to be 70 on Saturday.
Oh, happy birthday!
That's a big birthday. It's the reason I point that out, though, not my birthday, I'm talking about, but the change is that even though the costs have gone up significantly, the revenues have gone up even more. And so now it looks like we'll probably make about $2.5 million. Right. But the key, as you know, in commercial leasing, commercial appraisals, whether it's multi-res or mixed use like this building, is it's income, right? You know that.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not comparable. I mean, how many 1880 buildings are there out there? Not that many, and that are doing exactly this. So it's not like buying a bungalow in a suburb. There's 5 or 6 other bungalows that are nearby that have sold recently. You can look at comparables, you get some sense of it. But if you have a bungalow that you've animated and has a basement apartment or has a coach house in the backyard or both, that's not comparable. So again, you might, even in residential, you might be looking more and more at what income is it generating and what is the multiple that you apply to that. Okay, everybody clear on that?
Yep.
All right, so let's go back and I'm embarrassed to say, until you challenged me, how do you do a proper pro forma, Prof Bruce? I had never actually gone through the most recent iteration. That's why it took me 2 hours. So it was a good challenge, Jake. I really liked it.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, well, there you go. So what I did here on the right-hand side here is I put in the rents that we're going to get for each of the apartments on the 3rd floor. So small apartments in Belleville are going for $985. The 105 that you see here is an additional charge for the tech package. We charge for technology packages. It's a profit center for us. And so the most of the flats or the apartments on the 3rd floor will go $985, $985, $95. One of the bigger ones or 2 of the bigger ones will be $1185. And remember, at least 2 of the apartments, I think, on the 3rd floor will be bundled in with the Artisan spaces. Again, so the rents will be the same, but it will be part of a commercial lease and hence not subject to the Residential Tenancy Act. So anyway, those apartments on the 3rd floor will generate around $6,940 a month, which when you come back over here to this column here, generates about $83,000, but that's gross operating income, right? It's not net, right? And everybody pays their own utilities on top of that, but so it's kind of semi-net as opposed to just gross. All right, so it's 83,000. The 2nd floor apartments will generate about $48,000 a year. But you remember I mentioned to you before we started recording this that 2 of those apartments on the 2nd floor will be Airbnb units.
Yes.
We operate a number of Airbnb units. We like doing it. My wife is very good at operating it, and we have a team that is on top of this. And Airbnb in Belleville is extremely, the demand is off the charts. Belleville's right on the cusp of, or right next to Prince Edward County. Prince Edward County in Ontario is known as wine country. And interestingly enough, Picton banned, or Hastings County or Picton, I don't know which one, or Prince Edward County banned Airbnb. So you cannot, if you have a property in Picton or in Prince Edward County, the local council and I think the county has said no more Airbnbs. And the mayor of Belleville and his council has said, hey, we're good. Anybody wants Airbnb, go ahead. So the demand is off the charts. I used $135 a night for ours, but I have to tell you, I think that's on the low side. I used a 70% occupancy over, that's winter and summer. Summer will probably be 90 or 95%, winter will probably be 50 or 60%. So I used 70% for the 2 units, $135 a night. But I have to tell you that the last year and a half during the pandemic, Airbnb rates in the area have gone off the charts. And wealthy clients of mine came to visit this summer, and they rented a two-bedroom Airbnb in Picton, so about 10 or 15 minutes away from this particular building, $600 a night. You guys still there?
We stayed in one that
Yeah.
was the same in Picton.
Can you imagine $600 a night? So I think we'll do a little bit better. So anyway, you take these three, I guess it should, did I do it right? Yeah, I did. You take these 3 sums, you get about $200,000 a year of gross operating income. And I subtract from that a standard 34% for operating expenses, right? You've seen that number before, correct?
Yep.
All right, that's just a rule of thumb. I see that number over and over again in commercial, in residential. It's kind of like a magic number. So your operating expenses are your insurance, your property management, your vacancy allowance, your repairs, your maintenance, all of that kind of nothing to do with your mortgage, just your OPEX, your operating expenses, will eat up about 34% of your gross operating income. So that gives you a net operating income from floors 2 and 3 of $132,000. All right. Now let's look at the ground floor. On the ground floor, we rented the space to Loyalist College for their startup factory for $5,000 per month plus HST. Remember, in residential, you do not add HST, but for commercial, you do. And when we do a lease, which is for an Artisan space with accessory residential, I am pretty sure we're going to have to charge HST on both the Artisan space and on the residential space because it's part of the commercial lease. You guys understand that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. And you're aware of the fact, I think we've talked about it before, that HST is a business owner's best friend, correct?
Yep.
It's a profit center. Because let's say you build a building like this, you renovate it for $2 million and you pay 13% HST on labor and materials. That works out to what, $260,000 of HST that you paid as a building owner. But if it's all residential, you can't get any of that back. Do you understand?
Yep.
There are no input tax credits because there's no HST on residential rents. However, if you have a mixed use building and a building like this where you have some accessory residential as part of your commercial and you're charging HST, you now have $260,000 worth of input tax credits. That's
awesome.
That's pure profit. That just goes right into your jeans as a building owner. Clear as mud?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. If I'm going too fast or I'm not explaining well, stop me.
You're
Okay.
good.
All right.
We're following.
Okay, good, good. I know you guys know a lot of this stuff. So from that $5,000 is gross. I wanted to do a net lease. Let's call it that. No way. So they do pay their own utilities, but yeah, it's kind of semi-gross. So it works out once you deduct 34% for OPEX to about $39,600 a year from a Loyalist. The cafe will generate, I think, quite a bit of money. It will generate, if you just go to the right here, we're going to charge $1,785 base rent, $135 for the tech package. They will be, I think, a triple net lease, which means that they will pay on top of that their property taxes, their operating expenses, and their utilities. This, though, is crucial. All right, when you're doing proper commercial leasing, you charge a percentage rent. So we estimate they'll do about $650,000 a year in gross sales in the cafe. We're asking for 4% of that. That's a percentage rent in addition to the base rent and the additional operating costs. Is that clear?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so when you look at the cafe, if you sort of look at this up here, oops, did I screw up? No, I think I did it okay. So if you look at that, what it is it's $3,640 a month in revenue. That's for the cafe, plus 4% percentage rent, and that works out to $69,000 a year. So it'll be one of the big profit drivers in the building. And you notice down here, I said plus patio revenues. We're going to put a patio out front, right across the front of the building, and we're going to ask the city of Belleville if we can operate that year round. There are now patios in places like Copenhagen and even in, believe it or not, in Edmonton that operate throughout the winter months. Copenhagen is dark, cold, and windy. Edmonton is freezing compared to Belleville. It's really, really the Arctic. And if they can do it in Edmonton and Copenhagen, we can do it in Belleville. But I don't include any patio revenues, but that would add, I think, a little bit more here. So let's continue on. So we've dealt with the cafe. And then we've got the maker spaces and workshops. I think, yes, we've got 3 of them at grade. So those would be, like I said, a physiotherapist, registered massage therapy, it could be a storefront legal office, anything that, again, is internet resistant, pandemic resistant, and big box store resistant, right? And so that is gross income. I netted it out here. And then I've got the 1-bedroom apartment in the old stables, which is connected to the Artisan space. That will produce some additional income here. I've got another ground floor space, which will be next to the Loyalist College incubator. I'll put that on Airbnb. That'll generate some additional net operating income. So when I add up all of this, if you can see it, so only the ones that are net, so anything that has NOI in it is added up here. It gives you over 300,000 of income, and then you've got a 10.3% cap rate, 5.5% fair market value cap rate, a building that will be worth over $5 million. That's how I build a pro forma, and I do it for industrial buildings, office buildings, although I hate office buildings, shopping plazas, mixed use buildings, you name it. This is a very similar kind of exercise you could do yourself. Make any sense?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing that.
All right. So any questions on that before we go on to something else?
I guess the only thing, but I can do it myself, would be just adding in, like, so you have all those income. Obviously, it looks good on paper, but then when you factor in your financing costs and stuff like that, what your I guess cash flow is at the end of the day.
So the most important thing for you and me as developers, builders, renovators is cap rate. It's I mean, obviously, if you can get a mortgage at 2, 3, or 4% instead of 5 or 6%, that's better. I accept that. So you'll make more cash flow for sure. But from the point of view of a lender and an appraiser, they're looking at how much net operating income can you produce with this building, and what is your cap rate. And the reason they do that is, let's say a REIT comes along, a real estate investment trust, or a pension fund comes along. They generally don't put any financing on their buildings, right? They like low leverage. In fact, maybe even no leverage. So when you trade buildings, when you appraise buildings, it's your capital structure as an entrepreneur, and mine as an entrepreneur would be vastly different than a pension fund. A pension fund could have cost of funds below 1%. Whereas, you and I, you guys and me, our cost of capital could be anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6%, right? So the only way to compare one building to another is using, at least in my experience, is income and cap rate.
Okay, makes sense.
Right. Now, one of the things I was going to mention to you, because we wanted to talk financing, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this particular building, I financed it through a group called Keep Capital. And if you're interested, I'd be happy to introduce you to Darren Woodcock, who is, I think, the president and CEO of Keep Capital. So they did the construction financing. And they're not cheap. My construction financing is 9.9%, Jake.
It's cheaper than ours, so.
I thought it might be. I wasn't going to say that. I was waiting for you.
There you go.
But the reason I say that 9.9% is not, when we finish the building and we get it reappraised, I'll do a takeout probably between 3.5% and 4.5%. So my cost of funds will drop by at least half, I think. But to me, and I think probably to you as well, and to most real estate entrepreneurs and most entrepreneurs, it's not the cost of capital, it's the availability that really counts.
Yeah, I agree. We struggle with a little bit of both.
Yeah, I know that, but one of the things I'd like your permission to do is permission to introduce you to Darren.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate that.
Okay, now this is the next 2 minutes is going to be an ad for Keep Capital. I'm going to give you the advertorial here.
Sounds good.
They have been fantastic. They have been fantastic. When I went back to Darren and I said, Darren, you want the good news or the bad news? Now, most people want the good news first. I said, the good news is I think our income is way up and I've cracked the code on proper commercial and residential leasing. That is, like, I think it is what I just showed you. I think it's the best in the world right now. for this kind of thing. I mean, I didn't put a man or woman on Mars. I get that. That's hard. But
Yeah.
I have cracked the code. This will
Yeah,
work. This will work. And so I said, I think our income will be over 300,000 a year, not 196. So that's great. And I said, I think the value is going to end up being over 5 million. That's great. Now, what's the bad news? He knew what the bad news was. Our costs have gone up, over 800,000 bucks. He took a deep breath and he said, well, put it all in writing to me and send me, the updated numbers, and we'll take a look at it. About 3 or 4 days later, they did not approve the additional 850,000 that I asked for. They did not. They approved 1.35 million additional.
There you go.
Oh,
I'm glad you laughed, Paula, because I laughed too with relief.
yeah, no
yeah.
kidding.
For sure.
And what Darren said to me was, I mean, if I had any hair, it would be standing up right now. It was a beautiful thing that he said. He said, what we want to do with the people that we work with in terms of commercial financing, construction financing, is we want to make damn sure they finish.
Yes.
Because what the heck is a half-finished building worth? It's worth probably a negative amount of money.
That's a
So
good
he
point.
said,
That's a good way to look at
listen,
it.
you don't need to take the 1.35 extra, but it's there if you want it. And I just, if I could have, I mean, he's based in BC, so I would have, if he was local, I would have given him a big hug and a kiss. But that's more of an American style of thinking. If you go to with all due respect to the Royal Bank of Canada or any of the A lenders, and you needed, say you did need 1.35 million, they would give you 850 and say, you find the rest. And of course, entrepreneurs like you guys and me were eternal optimists, and we would say, oh, no problem, well, something will come up, but sometimes it doesn't, and you go broke. So American bankers generally are very similar to what Darren Woodcock said to me, which is, we'll give you more than you are asking for because you don't have to take it, but we want you to finish. That's extremely important. So something else, I've asked Darren to actually come to the ROI group. I think you're getting the invitations for that.
Yep.
All right. So I've asked him to come and present to the ROI group. We don't do an ROI group meeting in December. It's Christmas time. Nobody really wants to work. After the 15th or 16th of December, try and getting anything done.
I know.
So in January, he will come, and it'd be nice if you showed up for that meeting.
Absolutely.
But I will introduce you to him, and I really like the work they're doing. All right. So while we're on the phone, sorry, go ahead. I apologize. What were you saying?
No, I just said thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll do that right afterwards, and you'll like him. He's young like you guys, and he's very, very progressive in many ways. And they make decisions. And the three answers you can get to any question is yes, no, or maybe. The best answer is always yes, but the worst answer is no. The worst answer is maybe. Right? Maybe doesn't help you or me. A no is better than a maybe. Correct?
Yeah,
I
no,
agree.
you can move on and look
move
elsewhere.
on, yeah. So they don't do that. A lot of people, like if you go to the Royal Bank of Canada or any of the A lenders in Canada, they will put you through 4 months of due diligence, and then they'll turn you down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I know that, and we do have one A lender in Canada that is open for business for people like us, and that's Desjardins. Credit Desjardins from Quebec.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have another really good contact there. Her name is Annie Parody. She's one of their underwriters, Annie Parody. And she's at Desjardins. And she just did a tremendous term sheet for one of my clients, $1.8 million on a small business, 1.2 million mortgage, and $600,000 revolving line of credit for a very, very fast growing business that I'm sure it's going to be $100 million a year business. So I'll introduce you to these folks.
Thanks,
and by the way, there certainly Keep Capital is one of the contacts that was provided to me by Sean McCormick, and I've introduced you to him as well.
Yep.
Okay, so one of the things that's very important in our business is that you are loyal to the people who are helping you. So if you're going to do something with Keep Capital, you know, because Sean is a mortgage broker, probably would be best to put it through him.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
fair
makes
enough.
sense.
I mean, you're
For
going to pay you're going to pay a fee anyway. If you put it through
Yeah,
Sean,
exactly.
your fee doesn't go up. It just means he gets a little piece of the pie.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, just for complete disclosure, I don't get any part of those fees. I don't ask for any referral fees. Okay, that's not my deal.
Mhm.
As my kids would say, that's not my jam.
Yeah, you should say that.
All right, so just to keep it in the back of your mind, if you like Darren, you want to do a deal, just put it through Sean, and lets him earn a little bit of a living too. Andy Parody is somebody I work with another mortgage broker. His name is Craig Twigger. And, you know, and so when I do these introductions, I always bring the mortgage broker in as well, just to make sure that, you know, just because these people really are tremendous at what they do. And, you know, sometimes I pay fees to people, whether they're other realtors or mortgage brokers. I'm not even sure I really owe it, but I like to keep a really good relationship with the community, and that goes a long way.
For sure it does, yeah.
You know, people help
agree.
you and you're loyal to them, they'll be loyal to you. And if you ever get into trouble, God forbid, you know, those people will go to the fences for you. Like, what would I have done if Keep Capital said, no, I'm not giving you the extra 850 or the 1.35 million? I would have had to find the money elsewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or go to my piggy bank and see if I've got 10 bucks in there. All right. So yeah, so it is what it is. So the other thing I wanted to ask you guys, and we sort of talked a little bit about it. Have you ever done any RRSP financing for any of your projects?
We have, yeah, a small amount. It's also something that we kind of, coming from our professions, we did a webinar regard to investing. So that was a while ago now, but yeah, to answer your question, we've done it a couple times. We have a couple people interested coming up too, with like between 100 and $200,000 registered.
Yeah. So you know, a lot of the projects I work on, you know, there are lots of ways to raise money. You can raise money from partners or investors, or you can raise money through debt. And just for myself, I prefer debt to partners. If I can avoid partners, I will.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yep.
Right. And so I mean, and I have some projects where I have partners, not very many. Most of them are just me and my wife. But I do have some projects where I have partners, and they're fantastic. I mean, I have really, really good partners, and I enjoy working with them, and they've been very supportive. But most of my portfolio has been built by me taking on debt. And you know, I should say, Paula, that my father-in-law didn't like me very much. His name was Ken McMillan. He's passed away, but he was a nice man. I liked him, but he didn't like me very much. And Ken was an old timer, and he had never owed anybody any money ever.
Mhm.
He'd never owed any money on a credit card. He'd never had a car loan or a truck loan. He never had a mortgage. You know, he had a small house in a small town in Ontario, paid for cash. And if he couldn't pay for something in cash, he didn't buy it. And so he didn't think very highly of me because I built, you know, a relatively big billion-dollar company, mostly on debt. And it worked great until I bought a hockey team, and then it went broke. You know, which is my responsibility entirely. I can't blame anybody but myself for that. But so he took a dim view of me for that reason. But the other reason, Paula, he took a dim view of me was I ran off with his best asset, his daughter. And you know, so he you know, I'd like to see him again. He's obviously in heaven now, but yeah, he and I respected him a lot, you know, his position, never owing anybody any money. So debt is dangerous. It can work for you, but it can work against you. But I have to tell you that in my experience anyway, partners and investors are more expensive than debt.
Yeah,
I agree.
For a couple of reasons. One, they tend to slow down decision-making, which is very expensive for people like us. You know, when I want to make a decision on something, I can just go meet with myself or talk to my wife at coffee time and make a decision within a few hours or a couple of days. If you have partners, they want to stay in the business, and you know, it slows down decision-making and often leads to problems. So actually, I don't actually have any partners. I do have some investors in a few projects, but they have absolutely no say whatsoever in the project. So they would own preferred shares, or they would be secured by promissory notes, but they would not have any voting rights or any say in the business. And most of the investors, well, all of them that I deal with, don't want any say in the business. They want me to be worried about, you know, the cost overruns on that project we've been talking about for the last hour, right? They
Yeah,
just say,
yeah.
hey, listen, if you make a couple of $1 million, let me know. You know, 10% of that's mine. Excellent, right? Those investors are good investors in the sense that they don't bog down decision making, but they do want a return on investment. And, you know, let's say I'm borrowing money from Keep Capital at 9.9%. 9.9% is not a good ROI for an investor. Like if you and I were, you know, I used to be a rich dude, but if I were a rich dude again, and you guys were rich dudes, we would, if we were investing in other people's businesses, we would want 18, 20, 22, 24% internal rates of return. We don't want, you know, 6 or 8%. We can get 6 or 8% just by doing some mortgage debt, right?
Correct.
So, so when you're paying 9.9%, you know, on money borrowed from Keep Capital construction financing, and you're going to replace that when the project is finished with money that's, you know, 4.5 or 5.5%, maybe a little bit less, that's okay. So the expensive money is a bridge to something better, right? So as long as it's within a year or two that you can get somewhere else, I'm okay with paying higher rates. And not everybody agrees with me, but that's the way I feel about it. And so what I have done for projects, you know, because I had to restart my career, as you know, after the Sens went broke, and I was, you know, I was borrowing 100% loan to value. How do you do that? You know, you know, I was buying, you know, a townhouse and animating, you know, adding a basement apartment to it or something like that. I had no money. I mean, nothing. I was 54 years of age with nothing but experience and some education. And so what I would do is I would borrow, I don't know, you know, 70 or 80% loan to value mortgage to buy a townhouse. And then I would need some money, you know, to renovate. And with RRSP financing, you can go up to 100% loan to value. You guys know that, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So let's say you bought a building for, you know, or you were developing a building, you know, you could put a second mortgage. RRSP funds can come in as a second mortgage. It probably cost you 8 or 10%, maybe even 12%. But again, as long as it's a bridge to get to the next step, which is of course lower cost financing, I'm okay with that. So RRSP funding should be part of your future. And the reason I introduced you to Sean McCormick is he does some of that, you know, so you don't actually have to go out and beg, you know, beat the bushes to find somebody with some RRSPs that they will invest. You know, there are people out there, and Sean is one of them, who will match you with people who have, you know, in some cases, many, many millions of RRSPs, right?
yeah.
Okay,
That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I was going to ask you if that was like a thing.
That is a thing. And, and you know, that's why you want to have people around you, Jake, that are really good at what they do and well-connected and have experience, right? A youth has a lot of advantages, you know, but experience does help too. So a guy like Sean McCormick runs his own fund called Castle Bay Alliance. I don't know, it has $30 million there. And he would have access to a few $100 million or maybe even a little bit more than that of RRSP money. You know, and there are other mortgage brokers out there too. What you can't do is you can't go to the mortgage broker who says to you, listen, Jake, if you're working for the government of Canada making $185,000 a year, and Paula, you're working for the government of Canada making $185,000, and you both have credit scores in the 800s, and you're buying $1 million home, and you're putting $500,000 down, and you only need $500,000, I can get you a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What does that do for you?
Nothing.
Puts you in a lot of debt with no.
No,
or
you just,
really.
I mean, those mortgage brokers, you know, took a 2-week course, and beyond that, they cannot help you, right?
100%.
So you have to be very choosy about who, whether it's an attorney or a mortgage broker or coach or whatever, you have to be choosy, and you want people who really actually know what they're doing. Okay. So we're now experts in RRSP lending,
Yeah.
which is good. I think we did cover, but I just want to make sure that we did cover how you deal with short-term rentals to qualify for, you know, how to entice lenders to lend you money. We went over that. Do you remember?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
So with the RRSP funding, what would your ideal financing structure be? So would it be bring in someone in first position at 70 to 80, top up with an
Yeah.
RRSP, and then get a construction loan?
Yeah. So well, I'll give you an example. One of my clients is doing a Main Street makeover in a small market. And he bought a building for, I think, $700,000 or $800,000. Again, quite old, but beautiful potential for restoration. I'll just stop sharing for a minute. And his cost for renovations, he estimated, was $800,000. It's probably going to be more like $2 million. So yeah. So he and his business partner and life partner had the $700,000 to buy the building. But I said, even if you have the cash, we'll put a 50% or 60%. I think it was actually 65% loan to value first mortgage in place. So I'm just going to run my calculator for a minute. So it was 700 grand, and he got a 65% loan to value. So he got $455,000 first mortgage, right? And then he raised $800,000 from his friends, you know, and we did that as a Mad River structure. So what that meant was, out of the 800,000, I'm going to say roughly half of that was debt, but the debt was not registered as a mortgage on the property. It was simply secured by a promissory note signed by this individual and his business and life partner. So the beautiful thing about that is, when you sign a promissory note, it does not show up on title. So to the lender, it looks like you've got a $700,000 building with a $455,000 excuse me, mortgage, first mortgage in place. And then you've got $800,000 of cash available to invest, right? The other $400,000 out of the $800,000 raised from their pals was in the form of equity, preferred shares in the corporation. So again, it doesn't show up on title, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So whether it's Keep Capital or any other lender, they look at it and they say, "Oh, that's good." So what then is possible is to come in with one of two things. You could come in with a RRSP second mortgage for whatever the amount you might need, and that would be completely separate from anything else that they've done. Or they could simply go to somebody like Keep Capital, and they're actually considering which is the best option for them right now. And you could go to Keep Capital. They would put in place financing, both take out the existing first mortgage and put enough financing in place to obviously take out the first mortgage and to fund the whole project, right? So that they have basically $455,000 of first mortgage money, $800,000 of cash from a bunch of pals, and they're probably going to be able to get at least $1.5 million from Keep Capital, maybe $2 million to take out the first mortgage and to do the funding. And so they'll have plenty of money. So there's lots of flexibility in this kind of system I'm describing to you, but every project, Jake, is different. So when you're going to do some funding, and some financing, RRSP loans, first mortgage, construction financing, promissory notes, et cetera, the three of us have to get together and actually sort through what is the best structure for you, for this project, and for the people who are helping you. Making any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I know this wasn't really on the agenda, but I think we've told you in the past. So on the smaller projects, we've had in the past, we'll do a first mortgage up to say 100% sometimes, and then we'll raise construction and carrying costs with a promissory notes. Expensive though, as I mentioned, 15 to 17% usually.
Yeah, that is too much. That we have to stop.
It's just, it was easy. It was pretty much at ease of access. So we were getting those through a broker.
No, I get that, but 9.9% is more manageable than 17% for sure.
100%, yeah.
100%.
So we have a couple of.
Sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead. I'll just tell you kind of what's going on here after. So we have one project coming up in January that we're kind of figuring out the best way to fund. We've been offered. So I'll give you kind of a quick example. So we pay $685. One of the options that was presented to us was
Which project is this, Jake? What project is this?
It's
Erie Street in Stratford.
Erie Street in Stratford. So it's a single family home right now being converted to 5 units, maybe we just had drawings done yesterday. So we'll see if there's room for some like 1 or 2 micro suites.
Oh, cool.
In addition to, but right now it'd be 5 units.
What is the address?
297.
Yeah.
Erie Street.
How do you spell
Stratford?
Erie Street?
ERIE, like the lake.
Okay. So 297 Erie Street, Stratford, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
So 685 purchase price. Kind of going through our groups of people and seeing what options are out there. One of the options presented was 65% at purchase, loan to value, and then up to 80% of as complete appraisal, which we've never done before. I've heard of it before.
And then draws.
And then draws for the construction. So in that situation, we would be, I can't remember, I think it was around $280,000 short on closing. And then I asked if we could bring in a second on that. So I haven't heard back. Or do we just raise money? The other question I have.
So I think that's a really good one to go through. I'm going to share my screen with you now. So I guess this is the property here.
That's
it, yeah.
And so, all right, so there we are. There's 297. You can see the for sale sign on it. Was it a bed and breakfast or something? Or was it a professional?
Yeah.
Bread and breakfast.
Bed and breakfast for years.
Huh. Okay, and are you taking the building down or are you renovating it?
Renovating it.
Okay, so it's a rental. All right, so I'll go back. So the purchase price is what?
$685.
Right, I got that. And the renovation cost?
Oh, sorry. I think we're around 400, but
Okay.
it's just ballparking. So
Yeah.
probably
Probably
than that.
more.
Yeah.
And what is the zoning on it?
So the zoning is commercial. In Stratford, it's C3. So it allows for bed and breakfast, but it has to be owner occupied. So that was out. You can do up to 4 residential units with 1 non-residential unit, which we're doing, but it'll be an office that is like a micro suite, so we can B&B it. Yeah. So that's kind of the plan that we're going now.
I like it. And what's the backyard like?
It's a big. We're gonna have to expand the parking area, but it's a big lot. It's 80 by
130. I think.
130.
It's 130 feet deep.
And it's
Somewhere around there, 120 maybe, yeah.
there's plenty of room on the side, like kind of where the
Where the
Yeah.
sign is.
Airbnb
Yeah.
sign is, or the
Wow.
B&B sign is. There's plenty of room over
Do you
there.
think it would allow a coach house?
Stratford
Stratford's
is
pretty
behind.
tight on that, but there's definitely room for that if that was an option. But
All right.
they don't even do.
Sorry, go ahead. We'll deal with that in a minute. So let's just let's talk about the finances. So we've got $685,000, $400,000 renovation cost. And what do you think the building will be worth after completion?
I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was
1.3
1.4, I think, based on
cap rate.
cap rate. Here, I actually, if you're okay, I'm just
What
gonna.
was your cap rate on this building?
I think it was 4.5 to 5. I think we used.
Yeah,
Can't remember exactly. Well, I'm gonna pull it up though. I have it. I have it
What
here.
was it in?
I'm just pulling it up on the other computer here, so it'll be in Burzer.
It's a beautiful place, man. I really love the look of it. I love the wraparound porch.
Yeah, it's actually a lot nicer when
That giant tree,
Tree needs to come
is
down.
like, there's like a turret on the side there.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, that's cool. So with your 5 units, it'll produce a certain amount of income, and the cap rate is probably around 8 or 9%, or 7 or 8. And the market. Sorry, what was the cap rate on?
I think I used long-term rents.
Yep.
Not our, because our plan is to short-term rental it, but I use long-term rents. And based on that, I can't remember offhand which cap rate I used, but I had a.
But what cap rate is it? What cap rate is it generating? Don't worry about the fair market value cap rate. You know, if you go 5 units on long-term rental, it's producing probably 7 or 8%, I'm guessing.
Get Paula to check here. What's our income there? Let's change that. So we do that. Is it income? So we're just putting it in our spreadsheet here.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, go ahead. It says, I don't really trust this thing that we use, but it says it's probably not that high.
What does it say?
It says 9.
Okay, we'll say 9 for now. So
I doubt it's that.
So I'm with you on that, Jake. So I'm going to send you that spreadsheet that we went through with at some length.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you should make sure you understand how to use that spreadsheet and then create your own. Don't use any of the automated tools out there, in my opinion. It will lead you astray. All right. But let's go with your numbers for now. The one thing that just before we talk about how to finance this properly, one of the things I did talk to you about and alluded to a few minutes ago is in order to improve the, I don't know, cosmetics, if you will, of anything like this, is that you could have a company that actually does Airbnb. It's your own company. And it could lease 297 Erie Street from the owner. And it could provide, you know, we'll give you, you could do a triple net lease on this building. You understand what I'm saying? You could have,
that's,
yeah.
You know,
we're doing that
We
with some
actually
other
do that
properties.
with other properties.
So the plan
now.
is to do that same thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Jake and Paula's short-term rental business rents from Jake
Yep.
and Paula, the developer and owner, the real estate company, and provides, listen, we'll give you, you know, $5,000 a month. We'll give you $10,000 a month. I don't know what the number is. We'll give you that.
Yep.
Triple net. We'll pay this operating company down here. We'll pay the property taxes. We'll pay the insurance. We'll pay the water. We'll pay all utilities, everything else. And then it's a long-term lease. But this company down here has the right to sublet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You can put it on Airbnb, right? So you could have,
Yes.
this is a tremendous little dodge that works unbelievably well. Don't ask me why. I'm not even sure why is Desjardins and Royal Bank of Canada and so many other A lenders, why do they love this? I don't know. They just do. You know, sometimes you can't. Sorry,
I
Paula.
was just gonna say, we're running into trouble. We're using Libro for a refinance, and they told us that it has to be
Non-arm's length.
no arm's length.
Or whatever the one is where it's like not arm's length or arm's length, whatever the one is that doesn't allow you to do it with
Like they don't want to see.
like a company that we own renting them.
Yeah,
Leasing them, sorry.
I think that's unfair, and I wouldn't agree with that. Like, I think I told you, and I'm going to share my screen with you now because we're on this, but we're going to come back to the financing, Jake. I'm not going to forget about it. You know, I'm going to come back to, you know, this slide deck here. When does 1 equal 2? Or when does 1 + 1 equal 3? This is a spa based in a small town in Ontario, very successful spa. But the owner of this particular business, she ran the real estate company and the operating company as one. So it was just a big bowl of spaghetti. And I said to her, look, if you take the real estate and separate it up from the operating company, you will be able to finance the operating company independent of the real estate and the real estate company independent of this. It just gives you tremendous flexibility. And it's not fair, Paula, for your lender to say, oh, no, you're renting it for yourself. That's not fair. That's, you know, that's non-arm's length, right? You know, I get that, but they're wrong. And I can tell you the Royal Bank of Canada, Meridian Bank, Desjardins, and a bunch of others I deal with, they do understand that this structure actually is an improvement. It's not just cosmetic. All right, Paula, are you clear on that? And the reason for that is, think about it. Let's say, Paula, you were the spa operator here, and Jake is the real estate guy. He says, I don't know anything about running a spa, but Paula loves running. So Paula, you know, even though you're business partners and life partners, Paula is really responsible for the spa, and Jake is really responsible for the real estate. Now, if you're just running it as one big, you know, bowl of spaghetti where there's no separate bottom lines, then Paula, you don't really know how your business is doing because you're not paying any rent. And Jake, you don't really know how your business is doing because you're not collecting any rent, right? It's just, you know, you got some, you're mixing apples and oranges. Paula, you're paying people to do facials and manicures and pedicures and registered massage therapy. Meanwhile, Jake is worried about, you know, making sure that the toilets work. Do you understand? You're mixing two things.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
All right.
Yeah.
So when this person I coach separated out the spa from the real estate, immediately, within a couple of years, her spa operations were extremely efficient and were more productive and were more profitable because it had its own bottom line. And the real estate also was more profitable for the same reason. So 1 + 1 made 3. I don't know if you guys can see that in your mind's eye, but it does work.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Totally
100%.
agree.
And that's kind of what we
you should do that. You know, I used to
Just-
run the largest mini office business in Eastern Ontario. We had 2 floors in Heritage Place, which was the tower on the right-hand side. And we had, I think, 1 floor in this Royal Bank Pavilion, which was in the western suburbs of Ottawa. I had 163 mini offices, and we separated it out. We had Terrace Corporate Centers Limited, which was the co-working space operator, and it rented those floors from Terrace Investments Limited, the parent company. So the parent company was in the real estate business, and TCCL was in the co-working space business, 2 different businesses. And sure enough, again, within 2 or 3 years, both businesses were doing better, and we had many more financing options. So by disaggregating your businesses, you will improve operations and you will improve your financial opportunities. You'll have many more financings to do. I'm not going to go through all this detail because it's too much, but it works. And if some lender tells you, oh, well, it's non-arm's length and you're just renting from yourself, they actually don't know what they're talking about. And you have to educate them.
Okay.
And if you're having problems with a lender, maybe I can't do anything else, but I can talk. So if you want me to join a Zoom meeting, I do this all the time for clients. When we're talking, you know, to a mortgage broker, we're talking to a bank or a lender. I don't have time to jump on for an hour, but I can jump on for 20 minutes and say, look, this is why. And this is how it
Yeah,
works.
thank you.
All right, so
Appreciate that.
you rope me in, Jake, when you need me, okay? And you too, Paula, all right?
All right, thank you.
Thanks
All
for
right, please do. So I'm pretty good at talker. So let's go back now to our place here in Stratford. Share the screen again. All right. So let's assume for the moment that we've got, do you have a name for your operating company, you know, the short-term rental company?
Yeah,
What's it called?
Penelope Lemon.
Is it really called that?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Okay, so Penelope Lemon Inc.
It's Penelope Lemon Short-Term Accommodations is kind of what so it's actually operating out of a number company, but it's operating as Penelope Lemon.
Okay, so Penelope Lemon is going to rent from, and what is the name of the real estate holding company?
It's just a numbered company.
Okay, all right, we'll call it numbered company. All right. So I'm just trying to think.
Ours are numbered.
So what we're gonna do is we have a purchase price of $685 and rental budget of $400. All right. So Jake, again, take me through what your mortgage broker is currently suggesting.
65% of purchase price at closing,
Yeah,
with 80% of as complete value through
but
draws for
where's the
construction.
400? Sorry, where is the other 35% coming for the down payment, and where's the 400,000 for the renovations coming from?
So the 35% from the down payment would be on us.
Yeah,
The 400K in construction costs are coming from the 80% as
Completed
complete value is the max they will end up to through draws of construction.
all right. So okay, that I'm getting it now. So I think this would be a good project to ask. I mean, it's a small project, but you know, Keep Capital will do small projects. They'll do medium-sized projects. I bet you they do big ones too. So if you have 35% down, that's coming from you guys. So that's 685 times 0.35. So you're putting basically 240K of equity, right?
Yeah.
All right. And so, and we think the value is going to be 1.4 million when complete.
Correct.
Right? So 1.4 million times 80%. I don't think you get 80%. Let's go 75%. 1.4 million times 0.75 is a million and 1.05 million, right? And you know, so if you've got 75% of the 1.4 million, it means that you've got 1.085 million. It means you would end up with $35,000 in this building when you're finished.
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't see why you couldn't go to Keep Capital and say, look, we'll chip in 240,000, but they would do the first mortgage and they would do the construction loan at 9.9. That's what I think you could do. Just do the whole thing in one shot.
That would be easier. So the scenario that I mentioned to you was the same. Everything was 9.9 plus fee. Obviously there's some fees in there too.
Yeah, there's always
but yeah, so but yeah, it would be easier if just one whole shebang, right?
Because like this is fine, and we have people who could come in with an RSP for a second, but then when I asked like, can we put a second? They're like, we'll have to get back to you. I'm like, well,
yeah. No, I think, you know, this one is so, I mean, this is very, very simple. And, you know, I think you could say, look, we want, they'll certainly put a 65% loan to value mortgage on it, and then they'll give you the money you need to build out your renovation, and then you can put a takeout mortgage at 3.5–4.5% on it at 1.05 million. So you'll end up with $35,000 or thereabouts in this thing. Maybe, I don't know, some small amount of money in it. Maybe nothing.
Yeah, it all depends. Obviously, there's the carrying costs that aren't in there too. But yeah, we're
So I think this one, you don't need, Paula, I don't think you need an RRSP second. You know, I mean, RRSP mortgages are time consuming and, you know, they're a little bit more finicky. You have a first mortgage, you have a second mortgage. You know, RRSPs must be in mortgages. They can't just be promissory notes.
Yeah.
So I think this
Quick
is very, very simple. You just go to a construction funder, say, look, we need, you know, first mortgage of 455 and we need, I would ask for $500,000 just in case.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think we're underestimating some of our construction costs.
Well, so ask for 500K, you know, for construction and reno, and ask for 455 for the first. Well, and it's all first, right? Just as they advance money, the first just gets bigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I think you can get $955,000 for this thing, you know, through Keep Capital. And if Keep Capital for some reason wouldn't do it, there'll be plenty of others that Sean McCormick will know who will do it at 9.9. But it's just one mortgage, it's one step, and it's fast.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Yeah.
And
then
Keep Capital, when I ask Keep Capital for an advance, they generally do it in like 5 business days, right?
awesome.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, so, you know, they will do it in 4 business days or less, but you have to pay like a little bit more money for that. So I generally give them a couple of weeks, you know, to do it. But
Yeah.
they will do a rush if you need it, but you have to pay some extra fees for that. So but you know, I don't do that. So
And
if you
then
give them a week or 2 weeks of notice, that no problem, you'll get your advances.
so what is usually required for like you could say the reno was 400K, but obviously you need some proof to back that up. Is that like a quote from your contractors?
So what I did, let me just share, I'll stop sharing for a moment and I'll see if I can find it. I'll show you what I gave them, if I can find it, the latest one I did. You're asking all the hard questions, right? For me, I've got several million files, Jake, on my computer. So when you ask
You're
for
very
something,
organized, Bruce.
I am, but still, you know, I like to try and prepare. And so when Jake throws a question like that, hey, you know, but I can show you what we've got. Give me a second. More money needed. No, up there. Okay, here it is. Yes, I think I've got it now. Yeah, I think this will help. So Jake, what they're very, you know, the way Keep Capital actually works, and by the way, not just Keep Capital, the others that I work with, like Desjardins and others, they actually work. It's hard to believe, but they actually work mostly on the basis of trust. If they don't like and don't trust you, they're not going to lend you 10 cents, right? But if they like and trust you, man, they're there for you. So that's why I said it's so important to you know, to have a good reputation, which I'm sure you do, and to, you know, to try and keep all your promises. So this is what part of what I submitted to them. So this is 251 Front Street, projected budget cost for December and January. So there's the amount that we needed. There's the contingency. The total to the date on the new mortgage, and then this was from my contractor. So the mechanical, heating, electrical. This was some of the work we're doing on the Loyalist space. Some additional framing, drywall, etc. This all came from our project manager, and it's an internal document, so it's not audited. It's just an internal document. So the amount that we needed for December and January was 669, right? That came from my contractor. And I added, I didn't even tell them this, I just added 10%. So that's what I did. So, I mean, it's, you know, they are trusting me that, I mean, I could take the money and run off to Las Vegas and, you know, spend it on wine, women, and song, right? I'd never do that. But you understand, Jake, I mean, it's all based on trust. And we did have an appraisal done as complete. And I asked them when I went back to them for additional funding, I said, do you want me to do another appraisal? And they said, no, just we know that labor costs have gone up. We know the material costs have gone up. You document it with your contractor, you send it to us, which I did. And it was just an internally prepared document. So it's all done on the basis of trust. I mean, I literally could run off with the money and go to Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm. Quick, two more quick questions, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So where is your, so you're paying 9.9, where's your carrying costs just coming out of that amount? You pay it at the end?
What I did, as you know, and I mentioned this to you, Paula, earlier, is I put into the budget the carrying costs for the financing, and I put into the budget, our project manager, and also project supervision. The project supervision goes basically to my wife. She is doing 90% of the project supervision. So it's right in the budget, right? So we are paying ourselves as we go. So there's
that makes sense.
right in the initial budget, and I don't hide anything from my lenders. That's how you build trust, right? By not hiding things, right? I said there's a fee in there for me and my wife as we're doing we're the development managers, and my wife's doing most of that, and then we have a project manager, Shelley Dara, and her cost is in there as well. And they're fine with that. I mean, what is the supervision by you, Paula, and you, Jake, worth? It's worth a lot. What's it worth for Dawn and myself, my wife Dawn and me, to be the development managers here? Huge value. So again, if a lender rejects that, you'll go broke. If you have as many projects as you do, and you're not paying yourselves, and you're not paying your project manager and your development manager from the funding that you're getting, then you will really struggle.
Okay, so I had two questions. I have two more now. The project manager that you mentioned on your Belleville project, is that a third party or is that an internal employee of yours?
No, she is a contractor. We hire her on different projects that we're working on, and she's terrific. I mean, would be, I think, 40 years of age, really very good at what she does. She would like to be a development manager, but she needs more experience.
Okay, and then my last question.
You asked me where do you find the development manager, because that was one of your questions in your agenda.
Well, yeah,
and
I don't know if we'll have time for that today, but.
Well, what you do is you look for somebody who is a project manager now, but would also like to know how to do highest and best use, would like to know how to do financing, right? Would like to know how to deal with committee of adjustment for minor variance, would like to know how to do a rezoning if they have to, right? They want the fuller picture, right? So, but you have to have somebody who, because a lot of project managers say, oh yeah, I'm a development manager, but they've never done a rezoning. Right? They've never actually had to get a building permit. They know how to do a critical path schedule, which is very important, and they know how to manage a project. Make sure that the framers are there before the roofers, right?
Yeah.
It's a little hard to put a roof on something that hasn't been framed. So they get that stuff, but they have to have a much broader picture. They want to do the financing. They want to do the highest and best use analysis. They want to learn something about animation and everything that goes into the development game. That's a development manager. You've seen the little piece I did on development management, right? So you're looking for a project manager who has some of that experience and is willing to learn more.
Okay.
Awesome. And then what type of compensation would we be looking at? Like Paul and I had talked.
They're expensive.
As just like a project manager.
They're expensive.
Yeah, like 1 to 120.
Project manager is cheaper than a development manager. I mean, a development manager has a much broader responsibility. Like if I was a young fella again, and I worked for you at Paula, I would make a very good development manager, because I know this stuff, and even when I have some education too. So, they're kind of $135,000 a year people.
Yep. No, that's kind of what we were thinking as well. So
Yeah, you know, you can hire a really good project manager for, you know, 85 to 95. You know, that might be the range, for example, for Shelley. But if she's going to step up and be a development manager, she's going to want more compensation, but she has much more responsibility. And she's not ready for that yet, but I think she can make that step.
and that was just
You're not
someone
allowed to
that
hire
you.
her either.
Yeah, I was gonna. What was her last name again?
No, I'm by the way, she's really good. But you know, and I have a young son. He's 32, who's fantastic, and he is a project manager, and he's heading in the same direction. He's going to be a development manager. He works for one of the largest home builders in Quebec, and I think they are the largest home builder in Quebec, and he runs their projects. But he's now taking steps to you know, he makes around 90 or 95,000 a year, but he wants to take that next step for a lot of reasons. I mean, running projects is great, but being a development manager is, you know, you can take steps as a development manager. You can start to doing projects like the Canadian Tire Center, right? Major community facilities, you know, 1 million square foot, 2 million square foot fulfillment centers, those kinds of projects, you know, and those people now are starting to make, you know, even more money. So you wanted somebody young that you can train yourself, that has been a project manager, who wants to step up. And yeah, you're going to pay him or her $135,000 a year, but you're going to expect a hell of a lot from them, and you're going to hope that they're going to grow with you, and you will be doing, you know, much bigger projects.
Cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. One more question.
Yep.
If you don't mind. You mentioned having a preferred share, I guess, partner with no voting rights.
Yeah.
In your experience, is there what do you positives and negatives to that?
I'm glad you asked that. Let me see if I can find the last one I did. As preferred shares are there's some definite advantages for you as the for you, but also for the investor. And I've got that here, I think. Let me see if I can boot it up here. You guys got anything planned for Christmas?
Not really, just hanging out with the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna take like 2 weeks off too.
Yeah, that's good.
That'll be nice. Yeah.
What about you?
Well, yes, I have a week booked off before Christmas, actually, because, you know, I think I told you I only have 2 addictions, Paula. One is to writing, and the other is to my wife. And just waiting for this thing to bounce up here. And yeah, so I'm taking a week off. I'm writing, you know, I had never actually counted up how many books I have written. And I did that this year. I found out how many. I have written 84. And
what?
Yeah. 84. Some of them are small handbooks, some of them are major works.
Yeah.
But 84. And so I said to my wife, I'm working on one more. This is probably my last one. So I'm going to take a week off and do some writing. And then between Christmas and New Year's, I spend time with my family, just like you were saying, Jake.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm really looking, but I'm looking forward to both hanging out with my kids and my grandkids, and also my wife, of course. We got married, Paula, on Christmas Eve. My wife.
Oh, that's
cool.
cool.
Yeah, so
That's
I never
awesome.
forget my anniversary.
That's good, because
That's
we
good.
both forget
We
ours.
both forget ours. So
Oh my gosh, you guys are hopeless. All right.
We just eloped, so it wasn't like a big memorable, you know, date in our minds.
yeah, we just did the city hall thing. So
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, there were reasons why we did what we did, but you know, we got married Christmas Eve, and really, it's a special time, really, in many ways for both of us.
absolutely.
So I wasn't able to find everything I was looking for, but I'll just share with you what I did find. Let's see, yeah. So this is one that we did very recently. Oh, come on, Firestone. Here it is. Okay, so you can see down here, preferred shares. So preferred shares and I might as well add this, preferred shares have a preference on wind up or dissolution. Okay. My typing is horrible. So the reason that investors like, many investors anyway, like preferred shares is that if the company is wound up, liquidated, sold, or dissolved, you settle your debts first, and then what's left over goes to settle. It goes to the preferred shares, and if there's anything left, it goes to the common shareholders. You guys follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So typically, Paula and Jake would own the common shares. The common shares would have votes. The pref shares would go to investors. They have no votes. All right.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
but the good news from the point of view of an investor is if there's any kind of a sale, liquidation, whatever, I'll just put that in here, sale, or dissolution, they have preference. They come before the common shareholders. They also have typically dividend protection. Dividend protection means that, so let's say again, Paula and Jake have all the common shares. You can declare a dividend for the preferred shareholders without declaring one for yourself. But you cannot declare one for yourself without declaring one of equal value for the preferred shareholder.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you don't have to put these provisions in, but in all of the financings that I'm involved with, where people do want shares in the company, I put these protections in because to the knowledgeable investor, and most investors these days are knowledgeable investors, and even if they're not, they'll have accountants or lawyers who are. If you don't put it in there, they won't trust you, and this thing will fail. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your own lawyer and your own accountant may say, "Oh, don't put that in there. You could declare a dividend for yourself without sharing any of the money with your minority shareholders." Would you invest in a company that did that?
No, it
No.
seems pretty sketchy.
It's pretty dodgy, I think. So preference on a wind up, sale, liquidation, or dissolution, dividend protection. And the next thing on the list here that you can see on the screen is tag along provisions. So let's say you have a very successful company, an operating business, real estate business, doesn't matter. And I come along and say you own all of the common shares, and that represents 55% of all shares. So you have a majority of all shares, and you have all the votes. Or maybe you only have 35% of all shares, but you have all the votes. Doesn't matter. I come to you and say, look, I just want to buy your shares. I don't care about the minority shareholders. I don't care about the preferred shareholders. I'm going to give you guys $20 million for your controlling interest in this company. Are you cool with that? You say, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. A tag along provision prevents that. So it means that I come along and I offer you $20 million for your common shares, your voting shares, and you say, that's great, but you have to extend the same offer to the preferred shareholders. Because again, they're buying you. Like if I was an investor in your company, I'm invested because I believe in Paula, I believe in Jake. And if you guys are exiting, I want to exit too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's called a tag along provision. All right. Typically, preferred shares are non-voting shares. They can have a vote, but from a point of view of you guys now, you don't want them to have any votes at all. I'm very clear. If you want to be a shareholder in this company, fine. You have no say in it. I don't want you to have any say in it. And in fact, you don't want to have any say in it. You leave it up to me. I'm awake at 3 o'clock in the morning worrying about cost overruns in Belleville, not you. And people go, great.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's doing all the finance. I'm the one who's signing all the promissory notes. I'm the one who's on the mortgage. You're sitting at home sleeping, right? When it's 40 below, right? I'm out there worrying about it.
Yep.
And if an investor tells you that he or she is not comfortable with that, they're not actually looking to invest. They're looking to become partners, and that you don't want.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Is there anything else that I think should go in there? Okay. Yeah. Something else that I'm not saying you should put that in, but special provision case of major fraud or other conduct. So sometimes what I have put into shareholder agreements to protect the preferred shareholder is a special provision in case of major fraud or other bad conduct. What I mean by that, I'll just stop sharing now for a moment. What I mean by that is in some cases, we will convert preferred shares to voting shares let's say, Jake, you and Paula decide to run off to Costa Rica and leave a project half finished, right? You just run off and you drop everything. Now we have a company where you own all of voting shares and there's nobody there to manage the project, right? It's a disaster. So in those rare circumstances, there can be in the preferred shares a means to trigger a change in control. In other words, preferred shares become voting shares and they take control of the company. I'm not saying you should put that in, but it's something you might want to consider.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Jake, did that lead to any other questions?
I did, yeah. But
No, go ahead.
I'll do one more quick one here. So you have so what does it look like to be a preferred share investor? What are they seeing? They're seeing a monthly check. They get updates, or they just like, I don't know, like what is that?
So on the I think I only have one project where I have investors. I give them regular updates. I like doing it. Okay. As I said, I only have two addictions. One of them is writing. So I will send them emails and say, hey, look, this has happened. This has happened. And I send them emails that are updates that are both the good and the bad. If there's a cost overrun, I'll tell them that. Look, we have a $300,000 cost overrun here, and it's been covered by this. The good news is that our revenues are up. So I will give them regular updates when anything happens, good or bad. All right, hopefully more good than bad, but I give them regular updates, and they really like that. It's just by email. It's not a big long report. It's just an email saying, hey, Jake, Paula, give me an update on where we're at. We got our building permit today. That's a happy day. We signed our first lease. That's a happy day. I'll email them and let them know that. So regular updates is a good thing. I don't put it in the shareholder agreement or anything like that I have to give them updates, but I do anyway. Okay.
Yep.
And then in terms of so that's updating. In terms of how I structure things, I think I've gone through this with you before. Some of the money from investors will come in as debt. And I will simply create very easy to create promissory notes, like Bruce, because my projects are not in companies. I just own them myself. I just can't be bothered with all the corporations. I told you this. I don't want to have 20 companies that I have to do financial statements for, income tax for, all the legal requirements. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
I just put all my properties, I think, are in my name or my wife's name. So what I do in those cases is if they lend me money, it just comes to me. Money goes into my bank account, my piggy bank, basically, and I sign a promissory note. I owe you $150,000. And what I do for almost every project where I have investors is I capitalize the interest. So they might be getting 6 or even 8% interest on their money, but it's not payable for 3 years or 5 years, right? It just accumulates, right? We talked about that.
Yeah.
All right.
How do you? I mean, it's a silly question, but how do you determine the value of a share? Like, if someone gives you 150,000.
So that's the 150,000. That's just debt. So 100.
Oh, okay.
So let's say somebody's going to invest $300,000 in one of my projects, and half of it's going to be debt. The $150,000 is typically I would give an investor 6 or 8% interest, but it would be capitalized for 3 to 5 years. So because these projects cannot afford to pay 6, 7, or 8% on a monthly basis. So, and I also say to them, Paula, that the interest is simple interest, so it doesn't compound, because compound interest can run away too, right?
Yeah.
So if it's 6% on $150,000, that's $9,000 a year for 5 years. So at the end of 5 years, I would owe them on that promissory note $195,000. Okay.
Right.
All right. And the way I'm going to pay that is hopefully the project has gone up in value. I'm going to refinance it on the 3rd anniversary or the 5th anniversary, whatever the time is, raise the mortgage and pay them out. So that's the money that they lend me is probably the very low on my concern list. Okay. But for some of them, they want to also own part of the equity. So maybe they're putting in $150,000 of debt, but they're also putting in $150,000 of equity. Now, how much do they get? What percentage of the company do they get for that? Which is how, another way of saying that is, what is the value of that share? Right? That's the question you asked me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what I do is I value the project as if complete. And let's say that it's going to, this project's going to be worth $5 million when it's complete, and the debt on it's going to be, I don't know, $3 million, just to make up a number. That means they have $2 million. There's $2 million worth of equity, right? And they're putting in 150 grand. Now, most people would say, well, let's just make it easy. Let's say they were putting in $200,000 of cash that's going to become equity, and there's $2 million of value. Most people would say, well, that $200,000 is 10% ownership, correct?
Yep.
But it isn't, because once they put $200,000 of cash into the company or into the project, right, you end up with 2.2 million in value. So it's 200,000 divided by 2.2 million, and that works out to 9.1%. That's a big difference from 10%.
Yep.
You understand that, Paula?
Yeah, so it's because it's worth 2 million, they added 200, so now it's worth 2.2, and then you do
Right,
percentage that.
exactly.
That makes sense.
So let's say you and Jake were doing a project, and you were going to end up with $2 million worth of value in it, equity, after all is done and said, and everything is complete, and you have a $3 million mortgage, you've got $2 million on the of fair market value equity in the project, and somebody was going to invest $1 million in that business. Well, what would they get for that? They would get, they wouldn't get half, they would get a third.
Yep.
All right. So a lot of people screw that up. Even very sophisticated accountants and lawyers, they'll often say, oh yeah, it's worth 2 million. I'm putting $1 million, I want 50%. It's not, it's a third. That's a big difference. All right. So you got to, on this stuff, Jake and Paula, when you're going to structure your deals, we have to really go through it every step of the way to make sure that it works. Okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love it.
All right. All right. Anything else? We got a couple minutes before we break.
No, that's good. I appreciate that. I think
Have a look at my my Avonmore 6-minute video.
Yeah.
it was good.
So we had 174 showings.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So when I, and my that's incredible. My videos, as you know, are they're corny, right? I mean, that's not much of a video, right? It took me all of about 5 or 6 minutes to create it, right? I just did it on my computer here.
Yep.
Put it on YouTube, put it, linked it to MLS, the system, 174 requests for showings in like 6 days.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's really cool.
One of the things that this animation stuff works in so many ways, and today at 4, 3 hours from now, we've got so many offers. We have it on a spreadsheet, and I'm meeting with the owner on Zoom and a couple of the young realtors who are helping me, and we'll go through all the different offers. I bet you it sells way, way, way above asking.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will.
So, I mean, I would expect you guys to do videos that are better than mine, but video today is probably the most powerful selling tool, whether you're leasing space or you're selling space or you're trying to convince lenders or investors to give you money. These 5 or 6 minute voiceover videos that I do that are super simple are unbelievably effective.
That's cool. We're actually, one of our projects that we get in January is a 9-unit inn in Stratford.
Yes.
And the team that we hired to do all the design work for it, they're doing a 7-part like video series or 7-episode video series on the project. I'm pretty excited about that.
So one last thing before we go, because I did have another note, Jake, from your agenda that I wanted to share with, and we'll just go a little bit over time, and then I'll let you guys go. I'm going to share my screen one last time here. I think I showed you, but I can't remember if I showed you this coach house.
Nope, not that
one. No.
All right. So one of the things, and this is being recorded, as you know, so I'll upload it to YouTube and I'll send you the link. It's unlisted, so the only people who have it be us. But this is probably the most profitable coach house that I've ever seen. And I designed it with Tim Moore. Tim Moore is a former student of mine. He's an architect. I'll just give you a quick rundown on it, because one of the things you asked in the agenda was what to do with 367 Princess Avenue, and that's the one I think that has like 200 feet of depth.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and then the one that you just told me about today, 297 Erie, might also have this coach house in the backyard if you can get that approved as a second phase. Don't complicate things now. On 297 Erie, you're going to turn it into 5 units, do it. But then if you can, you go ask the city whether they'll allow you to build a coach house in the backyard. And the same thing for Princess, I think. But let me show you what this is. So here is a perspective of it. And I want you to sort of understand how this works, okay? So the main entrance is over here where my cursor is moving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it has a side entrance over here, okay? And you'll notice that this door and also this door over here are 0-step entry. You know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a lot of my buildings, almost all of them now, the ones that I'm doing are 0-step entry, and I do it with landscaping. So I hate those buildings, homes that have the, those ramps, wood ramps. It stigmatizes the home, but whether you're a young woman or a young fellow with a baby in a baby carriage or carrying in groceries, or you're an older person with a walker or wheelchair, 0-step entry is a big deal, right? So that's what we do. So this is the main entrance over here. Here's the side entrance. Just keep that in your mind. And you'll notice how we do the basements. We do the basements with what I call a manufactured walkout condition. So we don't just have this little narrow staircase into the basement. It doesn't look like a dungeon. We pull out this to allow us to put a glass wall in and a door. Gives it more light, more air. It feels less like a basement, if you understand what I'm getting at.
Yep.
All right. This is just another view of it here. You can see the front door a little bit more clearly. There's the side door again. This is actually one that I'm going to build in the backyard of our principal residence next year. I was going to do it this year, but I have 6 projects, which for 69, soon to be 70-year-olds, too much. But next year, I'll put the coach house here. This is our main house here, and there'll be the coach house in the backyard here. Now, here is the floor plan for at grade. And let's go through it again. So you walk over here, and this is the main entrance here. You come in, there's your living room, there's your kitchen. You've got a cheater ensuite, if you know what I'm talking about here. It serves the public area. It serves the master bedroom as well. So when you close this door, it's a private ensuite. When you're entertaining people, don't have to go through the bedroom to get to the bathroom. We don't put dining rooms in anymore because so many people don't actually sit down for dinner anymore, and we just put in lunch counters. So there's a lunch counter here. And then I thought you'd like this. Here is the second bedroom. So it's just an ordinary 2-bedroom, but this bedroom has its own door to the outside, which I pointed out earlier, and it is a micro suite. fully self-contained microsuite. Can you see that?
Yeah,
I love it. It looks
We're-
exactly like.
we're using your idea
For our
for 176 Piccadilly.
Oh,
it
you're
looks
killing me
very
now.
similar to.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I want a percentage.
Yeah.
Deal.
Sounds good.
So, so just think it through again. So let's say so next year I'm going to build this thing. So maybe I'd rent this thing in my backyard for $2,000. Next year you get a nice 2-bedroom house in the backyard of my place, and you have permission, and in fact you are required to do something with the microsuite. You can put it on Airbnb. You can take in an elder. You can run your nail bar business there. You can run your hairdressing business there. You can run your registered massage therapy business. I don't care. You're going to make some money with that. So an old dude like me would come in here. You've heard me say this before. I'd rent this for $2,000 from you, Paula and Jake. And then I put this on Airbnb, and maybe I get $150 a night. So I make $3,000 from this thing. And pay you $2,000. I give you a percentage of whatever I make on this suite. Maybe I give you another 15%. So now you're making a little bit more money, and I'm living for free, basically. Okay, that's how it works. Now look at the basement here. So the basement, you come down that manufactured walkout condition. Here's the basement. This particular coach house, the downstairs is going to be developed as an office, because I have my coaching office here, but I've got some other people work with me, and I'm going to have 3 offices here, and a reception area, so I can run my office out in my backyard. But you can also tell that this could just as easily be an apartment. You with me on that? And you notice that the stairs going up here lands in this office. So in actual fact, if you look at it, the ground floor here, right? The ground floor here could actually, you could, if you wanted to rent it as one unit, you could actually, in your coach house, you could actually have, I think, 5 bedrooms. And we have a riff on this, a change on this, which allows us to do exactly the same condition down here as we did up here, with a self-contained microsuite. So you could do exactly the same kind of thing downstairs as you did upstairs. I don't have that here in front of you, but I have that somewhere else. So when you do the numbers on this coach house, the ROI is off the charts.
It's awesome.
It is really a good plan. And I have full drawings on this thing. If you're interested, if you ever want to put one on 297 Erie or on Princess Avenue, you let me know, because this coach house is really something. You could have, so if you think about it, you could have a 5-bedroom house in your backyard. You could have a 2-bedroom apartment and a 3-bedroom apartment. You could have a 2-bedroom apartment, and downstairs you could have an office to rent. You could rent them on Airbnb as one or separate, or part of it would go on Airbnb. You could Gigaplex the upstairs and the downstairs. The permutations and combinations are really fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, once we get our the plans that we were just talking about, where we took your microsuite idea, we'll share those with you. We're just getting them drawn now. So
yeah, if you don't mind, share them with me, and I'll critique them in a positive way. And
absolutely.
these animation things think about that property, that Avonmore property. The cap rate on that damn thing, I'll bet you it will end up being whoever buys it. I said to my client, he's a longtime client of mine, a coaching client of mine, I said, if I were a bit younger, I would have bought the damn thing. For $405,000, I'm sure I can make a 13, 14, or even 15% cap rate on it, but I just have too much on my plate. He said, well, maybe I should keep it. Yeah. I said, well, sure, keep it. He said, no, I got too much. He's going to sell it. He'll sell it today, I think. I'll see you guys, and have a really great Christmas. But I want to hear from you guys before Christmas. Let me know how it's going.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bruce. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce.
It's always good to see you.
Talk to you soon.
Soon.